You know, lying. We all we've all experienced what it's like to be lied to. We've most likely at some point in time experienced the act of lying. Now, I'm not specifically concerned with lying within itself. I'm more concerned with the perception of lying and what what that means. As an example, as I've stated before, I at one time was associated with a fair number of pagans and Wiccans. During this period of time, as I was trying to gain as much knowledge about them, their beliefs, and their social structures within their own little enclave, a friend of mine who I had acquired after becoming associated with this group, a friend of mine was, well, he was essentially broke. Uh, he worked part-time at a nightclub as a bathroom attendant. Now, there were a number of females that were at these gatherings, and at the time, I was working as an electrician, not making excellent money as far as I was concerned, but not not all too bad. The difference was, at this time, I was driving a car, a used car, that was about 10 years old. Now, a friend of mine, who essentially got mommy and daddy to go and purchase him a vehicle, was driving a new vehicle from the time it was built. So it was I'd say it was most likely around 9 months old. It was a couple months before the new model came out. Not only this, but he has this obsession with leather jackets and rings and necklaces. It's kind of metro. But the point being, he tried to present himself as someone with means, someone with utility that a woman can exploit. He did this consciously, knowing that if he was to actually display what he was actually earning and what his capabilities actually were, these women wouldn't pay him any mind at all. Keeping this in mind, and a few other points of view that to be honest, I wish I had never veered from in the first place. But I decided that trying to get a woman to pay attention to you by trying to make all these showy gestures does nothing more than bring these self-destructive flaming moths to you while you are carrying a can of gasoline. It's insane. Now, why am I discussing this with lying? Well, because I was wearing a jacket, a leather jacket, that I had since I was 15 years old. An old used stick shift, work boots, jeans, t-shirt, and a 10-year-old hat, kind of like a baseball cap. Because I wore this, and I presented myself much more I presented myself as though I was from more humble means than I actually was. Simply for one reason was because there were certain types of females I did not want to attract. But more importantly, I didn't see any need to spend all that extra money on stuff I didn't need. I could take that money and go and buy a new pair of Kleins, or a rigid hammer drill. I can use this money to invest in myself and my occupation. Why should I spend $200 on a pair of Nikes when a $35 pair of boots over at Walmart works just as well, especially in the application that I'm going to need them for? But as a result, I had this female who was supposedly dating a friend of mine. Yet she and her friends and her mom had all started bitching and moaning and screaming at me because I had lied. According to them, I had lied because I made it seem as though I was of more humble means than I was. And I lied because I didn't step in to save her from the horrible decision of dating my friend. And why was it such a horrible decision? Well, because after spending additional time with him, and then everything was still okay. He had ended up going and moving into a townhouse. Things were still okay for him. He had accumulated enough stuff from his time with his parents and from the work that he did. He had slowly accumulated some saved up wealth, some savings. As hard as it is to believe with his spending habits, he was able to manage. He was able to manage pulling it off. It was actually quite amazing to see how he was able to do it. But after a while, because for the longest time he wouldn't come over to my place with her. And I say a long time, but in reality it's about like 5-6 weeks. For him, that was a long time. And I didn't really think anything of it. I honestly didn't care. Then one day he comes by and she has tagged along. I met him out in front of the house. I guess she didn't realize it was my house. However, once going into the house, because she was curious to see as to what he was doing with all of his time, where he was spending his time when he wasn't around her. Essentially, she was trying to go and check up on him. She was acting as his warden, not as his partner. After her visit to my house, within a week, she was bitching, her friends were bitching, her family was bitching, because I had lied by not putting my utility and my resources on display. That is lying to a woman. She had made a judgment on what cock to jump on, based on what she saw, not what she reasoned. If she had paid attention to anything that was going on, she would have realized very quickly that what she had initially assumed was the exact opposite of reality. Most other men that were involved over there, whether they were little pussies or not, most of them were able to see this. They were able to see this by talking with me. Essentially going and testing other men to see what they know, what their skill sets are, how much of a threat they are, how much competition they are. Me, there really wasn't much of a competition because I really couldn't care less. But either way, I was still getting bitched at for lying. It had gotten so bad that these women will go and throw a shit fit that their boyfriends would come and talk to me about my deception. Interestingly enough, when they came over to talk to me about it, went and broke out a baggie and a six-pack, and we hung around in the garage playing hockey, pool, video games, whatever. I think it kind of backfired on them because more of these guys started looking at things slightly differently. Now, that's all well and good to say, and I'm assuming at some point in time most of us have been here in this position. I'm just trying to point out that women will act as though you are the most horrible person in the world if you are rich and you present yourself to be a pauper. And their family and friends will resent you even more if your friend, who she's interested in because she thinks he is of great means, if your friend is of more modest means, they feel that it is treason that you do not tell them, that you do not hand over your friend's checkbook so that they can go and check him out. This is the sense of entitlement that they have. Now, I've been through this type of scenario a few times in my life. Not really a good experience, mainly because of all the bitching, but definitely a funny one. After you are inebriated enough, you really stop giving a shit. But just keep this in mind anytime you go out, anytime you do anything. How you present yourself is of very high importance. If you present yourself to be of great means, you're going to have these women going and throwing themselves at you. These are also the gold diggers of the world. You present yourself being of modest means, you will save yourself a whole lot of grief, especially in the long run. More importantly, you'll probably not get a disease. And the most important is you will actually be able to see how people think and feel. People have a much lower guard when they feel as though they are superior to the person they are talking to. It's almost it's a complex. They'll be more open and honest on certain things to people that they think that they have an edge over. But for anyone, women included, that these women are, I guess, fearful of, the other woman has an edge up in competition in some category, that just gets them going. And you're able to see this as long as they think they are superior to you. As long as they think that, you can get a better gauge of their psyche and their personality. Well, thank you.